Is this the wheel set that put Hambini on the deck? Almost, but not quite. This is the new 42mm depth profile from Ascent, a wheel brand in Singapore. They've sent me these for free to do some testing. And you may know that I've been riding the 69mm deep version, the Fat Boys, which are also very wide, on the channel for about a year. I've not had any problems with those. Let's just get that straight. I'm doing more aero testing on those wheels as we speak. There's a lot of aero tests happening in the background right now with the support of a very clever aero partner and tool. The partner and tool are not the same thing, but they're very clever. And are these any good? Well, these are going to be going through a lot of thrashing. Now, these are not an aerodynamic wheel set. Let's just make no bones about that. The chord to thickness ratio of these will be about 2.2. At this Reynolds number we're talking about for cycling speeds, you really want something around 4. So this is not an aerodynamic wheel set because it's shallow and it's really wide. So I've just measured the internal width, and it's almost 23mm internal. Externally, at the top, they're about 32.5, and I think they actually get a little bit fatter. 42mm deep, so that makes the total chord with a tyre on, 28mm tyre, about 70mm. You divide that by the width, it's about 2.2. So not an aerodynamic profile at all, not an aerofoil, but that's not the intended purpose according to Ascent. This is an all-road gravel wheel set. Now, what is all-road? They're also calling it progressive road now, I think. If it's anything like progressive rock, that'll be shit. But on the box, it says they're made in Singapore. I think that's a little bit cheeky because I know the rims are made in Xiamen, and the hubs and the spokes are also made in China or Taiwan. Now, they're assembled in Singapore. That's fine. And I can see there's quite a lot of spoke nipple compound left on the spoke heads. It's quite nice to see that, actually, because it really helps anti-seize the spokes in all weathers. And, yeah, keeps some of the weather out, stops some untwisting as well. Untwisting? Stops them twisting. So it has a kind of multi-purpose. It's a bit of a thread locker and an anti-seize compound. That's quite nice. I use that when I'm building wheels. Well, I haven't built wheels for ages now because I just get sent so many to review. Very wide, like I said. Nice rim tape job. Will not be riding them tubeless. Of course, they're tubeless compatible and they're hooked. They're not hookless, so you can run high pressures on these, which you want for low rolling resistance. Hubs, as you know, one of my favourite hubs, DT Swiss 240. Now, not infallible. The last 4 DT 240 hubs I've had really bad cut threads on the centre lock mount for the disc brake. Not this side, the other side. So this side, I've had 4 really, really, really tight threads on these hubs that have got through QC, and there's just too much anodizing on them, and I've actually had to chase the threads, cut the threads, clean them up to be able to actually fully seat the disc lock ring to lock the disc on. Now, whose responsibility is that? I would say it's DT 240s, or DT Swisses, of course, but as an assembler, the company buying this as an STBO, a standard bought out part, whatever sub-assembly is going into another big assembly, they need to check the QC of it as well. So I did suggest that to Ascent when they're buying these DT Swiss hubs in bulk. You need to start checking those centre lock threads because they weren't really up to par, and how they got through QC. Well, it's just crap for the kind of top end hub that this is. These ones are fine. I've checked them already with lock rings, but I just wanted to show the wheels before I build them up, start thrashing them. I'm going to ride them, not as an aero wheel set, but probably use them over winter, give them a good thrashing, and they're actually not as expensive as they used to be, or the 69mm wheels. These, I think, retailing around, in today's piss poor pound value, that's an actual financial metric, is about 1,260 quid. So not too bad. I mean, you're getting a really nice hub there. I still really like the still really like these DT Swiss hubs because of the preload system. Now, I think they're one of the most long-lasting in terms of bearing life hubs out there. They're very well sealed, and the preload system on these, in terms of all the ones I've had, and I've probably had a dozen DT 240s now, the preload tolerances between the bearings, so the distance between the bearing seats is always bang on, down to about 20 or 50 microns. And that just gives the bearings a longer life. If you haven't got enough preload on the bearings, you get shitty bearing life. If you've got too much preload on the bearings, you get shitty bearing life. And I've always found the oh my God, what is it about DT240? I just can't say it. I've not had enough coffee, or maybe too much coffee. I'm pretty buzzing. Yeah, buzzing like this. Ratchet. And that's the other thing I like about these. I hate loud ratchets, and these are quite quiet. Where was I? Can't remember. Blah, 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 blah. DT, can't say it. Yeah, I just quite like these. Sappham X-ray spokes. You can't go wrong. Now, Hambini, when he hit the deck harder than a lady on a cruise ship, he was using the very early prototype carbon spoked version. Now, I did suggest to Ascent never to go down that route, because those carbon spokes had a very odd sleeve joint arrangement where the end of the spoke was bonded and it wasn't kind of tapered and flanged like the very successful ones and proven ones like Fastsports and Windspace are using, and also Hunt and also Cadex. They were using a different type which was bonded. Very little redundancy in that design, and I always thought it was a risk. They did a recall and they ditched that design completely. So now we're just looking at a solid hub and solid spokes, Sappham CX rays. These wheels are going to be, they're not going to be the stiffest, let's say, because you've got a long steel spoke, which can have a bit more stretch, and the spoke gauge is pretty light. But, you know, carbon spoke wheels can be too stiff, and if you're riding these on rough roads and gravel and stuff, you don't really need a stiff wheel. So stay tuned for further review of these. I will put them through the aero test as well, but little overview, and I can't really fault them at the moment. They look really good. So cheers.